Here today, over John and Andrew and David and Henley and others no doubt scattered amongst the crowd, which I can't see over my reading glasses. Thank you for coming along today. We have a bit of a focus on planning, and shortly Gary Rake from ACT Planning, Environment and Development, and something else I've missed.
Environment, Planning and Sustainable Development.
We'll be talking about the Gungahlin Town Centre refresh, and we're very fortunate to have MLA Megan Fitzharris along this evening to talk a little bit about the government's commitments over the next 4 years for the Gungahlin region. Spacing those two bookends out, we'll have an update on the light rail project and some of the changes that we'll have to accommodate as the light rail project gets constructed here in Gungahlin. I would like to record apologies from Alistair Coe, James Milligan and Susan Orr, MLAs for Yerraby, who've all indicated they would like to attend but have other commitments. But I'd also particularly like to pass on the apologies for Senator Zed Seselja. Senator Seselja has committed to be at our June meeting, which for those who follow the federal cycle will note is after the budget, to talk about his commitment during the federal election to get a government agency to move out to Gungahlin. He has, however, provided us with an update. And so I'll just read from that and we'll make it available online. Sorry I'm unable to be with you this evening. I'd like to take this brief opportunity to update you on my election commitment to see a Commonwealth Public Service Department or agency move the offices to Gungahlin to help boost the local economy. Last week, this is dated Monday, March the 6th. Last week I met with the Office of Minister of Finance and officials from the Department of Finance who are responsible for managing Commonwealth office spaces. They briefed me on the process they are undertaking to make this move happen and updated me on their progress. First stage of the process involves auditing all current departments and agencies to assess which are the most appropriate to be moved based on several factors including the number of employees, office space requirements and current leasing arrangements. The other aspect of this first stage is to identify potential sites in the Gungahlin Town Centre for a new office space to be constructed to accommodate the selected agency. The Department of Finance officials inform me that they are nearing completion of this first stage, having narrowed down the number of potential agencies to be moved and identified several potential sites in Gungahlin for the new offices. While for probity reasons I'm able to provide more detail at present, I understand this first stage should reach completion in the coming months. The Department of Finance inform me that they anticipate formal negotiations with the chosen agency will begin by mid-year, at which point I expect to be able to provide more concrete detail, hence the commitment in June. I'm proud to have secured an election commitment from the government to move a public service workforce to Gungahlin for the first time to grow the town centre and boost the local economy. I will continue to work hard to see this election promise fulfilled, which I think most in this crowd would be very thankful for, and we look forward to hearing further updates on that topic. All right. Secretary has reminded me that I should all encourage you to sign the sign-in sheet. That's one of our obligations. We have to sign up to being a community council. We have to make sure we record attendees, so there's a sign-in sheet at the front. If you haven't signed it, perhaps someone could pass that around so we can do that. And as a new innovation, we are providing snacks. So if you are feeling weak at some stage during the lively debate, I would encourage you to move to the back and grab a sandwich or a wrap or whatever it is we have provided, which is fantastic. So thank you for all that and those main items. I'd like to now bring on the major speaker for the night. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The first of two important speakers tonight. I've had a lot to do with Gary and his department and the department he works for over the last few months, starting with a meeting initiated by Minister Fitzharris late last year to talk about the challenges we've identified in Gunsmoke and in our public presences on the web and in the media around our concerns with the development of particularly Precinct 2B, the area over here where the high-rise is being built, and the seemingly unstructured nature of that development. And Gary's committed then in late last year to undertake a refresh of the town centre planning process, and has come along tonight to talk about where we're at and how that's going to unfold. So, over to you, Gary. We are live streaming this on Facebook. If you have any concerns about being streamed, then you perhaps would have to wait to catch me later on. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So unless David does something clever with the camera, then you're pretty safe. You just put that on, please. Okay.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for the mix-up on the speaking order. It's always great to be promoted above the Minister. I'm so sorry. My resignation will be on your desk in the morning. Thank you. Now, as Peter said, I'm here this evening to talk about a refresh of the Gungahlin planning framework. It's not quite true to say that I decided this. It's something the government decides to do, but we in the Directorate carry out the administrative work and, in particular, run the consultation with the community. We're here to have a conversation with you. A quick bit of background. The Gungahlin Town Centre Planning Report was released in 2010, and it informed changes to the territory plan that were put in place through Amendment 300. We're coming back to do a refresh because we've seen great growth and demand here in Gungahlin. It's basically a measure of success. In an area that didn't have as much demand, it might be 10, 12, 15 or 20 years between a major commencement planning document like the planning report and the need for a refresh. So some of the things that we've seen that would trigger us to need to come back for this refresh. We've got a lot of major public and private investment. We've seen the retail facilities grow here. We've got the city's biggest infrastructure investment in light rail already underway. We've seen applications for new buildings and we've seen approvals in place for higher density and taller buildings. We've also had quite a few new other planning and related documents and policies put in place since 2010. Our transport strategy, our planning strategy, our climate AP2, I'm sorry, we shouldn't use acronyms like that. That's Action Plan 2, it's a climate change adaptation strategy. We've also had an update to our active travel framework, the Healthy Weight Action Plan, the Planning Minister's Statement of Planning Intent. All of these policies have come into place since 2010, and we really need to make sure that our fastest growing region has the benefit of a modern framework that takes account of all of that. The area that we're focusing on is really the heart of the town centre, so we're not reaching out into the suburbs at this point. This is a planning refresh for the town centre itself. Really important note, and I have to confess an error, the edition of Gunsmoke that went out said that we're taking public comment until the 6th of April. It's actually to the 14th of April. We had an earlier version ready and we forgot to update the closing date, so please, 14th of April, we're very keen to hear comments through to then. We have an online survey. We've been conducting pop-ups in and around the town centre. We're open to receiving email submissions. We'll talk to you by phone. Any way that you want to contact us, we'll be open to that and we'll receive feedback. We're trying to attract all manner of voices, so we'll be looking to get young people in. It's really important in these discussions for us to find the missing voices, the people that we might not have heard from, and to understand the things that are of concern as much as the things that aren't of concern. If there are things that aren't worrying people, we can close that part of the discussion down and focus on the areas where there's greater interest. Once we get to the end of the planning refresh, we'll be able to tell fairly quickly whether there are changes needed to the planning framework, to the rules, and look at options to codify that, to get it into the territory plan fairly quickly. The main issues that we're going to be looking at through this refresh are those things that are most rapidly changing at the moment. Sorry, excuse that. Building height and character, that's a really important one. When we're seeing greater demand for new buildings in the town centre and the areas close to it, taller buildings, innovative buildings, changes in use, changes from office use to residential, it's important that we think about building and character, and that helps us put together a framework, a vision for the town centre. So it's really important that we think about what do we want this place to be over the next 10 and 15 years. Looking at public space. As we have more people living in the town centre, more people will be using the public space for their recreation. And so we want to make sure that those spaces are fit for purpose, that they're well designed, well built, well cared for. And of course, transport. We already know we have the biggest public transport investment in the city's history, starting in Gungahlin with light rail. We want to think about how we can make sure that the walking and cycling and road transport connections into the place and within the place all work in a cohesive manner. So when we start thinking about what might change out of this, if you think about end-of-trip facilities for cyclists, if we were planning an end-of-trip facility for an office building, we'd know that people might have ridden from home to work and they'd need to have a shower before they could go and sit at their office. If we're thinking about end-of-trip facilities at an apartment building, we're more likely to want secure, dedicated storage spaces where a bicycle and helmet and pump could be left for 3 weeks while you go away on summer holiday and know that it'll be safe and still there when you get back. There are only slight differences, but they're really important for us to think about when we're trying to design the framework and who has access to these spaces. How can you get involved? So I mentioned earlier we've got it up online, yoursay.act.gov.au. That's the ACT government's principal community engagement website, and our projects are always very prominent there. You can filter the sort of projects that you're interested in. Ours is the land planning tab. You'll find that very, very easily. You can email a submission. Great simple email address, gungahlin@act.gov.au. Or you can write to us in the traditional manner, and as I said, engagement closes on the 14th of April. That's my quick overview, but I have time for questions, I think.
Absolutely.
Please.
I was listening to that, and I'll be upfront. I don't like to talk really, so I come from that
Yep.
position. I heard you say, I thought I heard you say that you're looking at the height of the buildings, but I heard that in a manner that suggested they are going to be taller than we currently accept in the Gungahlin at the 8 floors, except for the one that's got.
Already got approved, yeah.
I guess I'm asking, was that a deliberate bias coming through with what I heard, or was that just my anti-bias coming through?
Sure. Could be a little bit of both. So to the extent that there'd be a bias from my end, it would reflect the fact that we're seeing applications for taller buildings already, and that's prompted us to make it one of the most prominent discussion points in this process. So I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at the online survey yet, but we ask very particularly what people's views are about the building heights that we'd see in the town centre. Yes, you have already? Yeah, okay, good. And so there'd be a little bit of a bias from me because we're already facing those applications, but it's not a bias as to the outcome of this refresh. Yes?
I'm working with the development. I'm looking more at the Gungahlin integration planning. When the buildings come, the residents will occupy. When the residents come, you will see the kids and families. Have we given a thought, or have we seen this input into the integrated development of schools or traffic or parking? Yes, so those sort of other bits
Yeah.
and pieces for the people to live in safe, happily.
Yeah, so that's the entire motivation for having any planning strategy for a town centre. In 2010, that work will have been done based on the population projections as they stood at that time. What we're really seeing is that demand has moved beyond that, and that's the main reason we're doing this work now, to make sure that we still have that integration. So we'll be able to work from, if we go back to the building example, once we know what the maximum building heights are throughout the town centre, we can estimate how many people would be living in the town centre based on the number of apartments and how tall the buildings are. That would give us an indication of their travel patterns, how many cars are likely to come out in the morning to go to work or to arrive at an office. We can understand the pedestrian loads walking from those buildings to the light rail stop, and we can also understand demand for schools or health services or playgrounds, areas to kick a football or throw a frisbee, and we can then make sure that we're pulling it together in a sensible way. I'll go over here.
One thing you said there about the vehicles. It seems to me that there's 4 very large buildings going on here. Maybe, I guess we've got 2,000 people, so maybe another 1,000 cars to the road. And yet each one has only done it for itself, each one of the 4 developments. There is someone producing something about development A has this and development B, how we can add them all together, and how we're going to cope with that on a road which to me seems fairly well shaped.
Yes, I agree, and again, that's another motivation for this. That third focus area is walking, cycling and road transport. Again, once we have a picture of the final built form, we can model estimates of the number of vehicles that would be generated by those, and we can model that based on the use. So we would know that a 2-bedroom apartment is likely to generate 1.5 to 2 vehicles if they're in a motor vehicle based area. If it's a commercial office building, we can work out the generation rates. Then we can model that through the road network and check that our intersection performance is still going to be adequate. One here and then here. And
excuse me, precinct 2B looks to be on the plan a little bit of an anomaly, calling it the town centre, because it's actually surrounded on 2 sides by normal residential properties, 1 to 2 stories high. And that seems to be covered by the precinct code, building code. So is a possible outcome of this refresh program that code will actually change? Because at the moment, developers have to explain how they're going to develop against the criteria.
yeah,
But if we change that, then they don't have to do that, because the criteria simply says, or one of the main aspects that they claim is where we are now consistent with surrounding development, because we've already got that 22-storey one that's stuck through the door.
sure.
But nothing actually discusses that we're not consistent with the houses immediately across the road. So is there a danger the rules are just going to change to suit the development?
The question you asked at the beginning is slightly different to the one you asked at the end. So I'll jump through. So in theory, yes, the rules could change. But I think the point that you raise about the interface is a really important one. The difference between the rules in a town centre and a residential area will be most apparent sort of right at the boundary between those two. And so I would actually encourage you to put a submission in that asks us to keep thinking really carefully about those interface issues. We would do it anyway. And a precedent, moving from, if there was a large block that ran on an east-west alignment, moving from the western end, a tall building that threw its shadow onto a shopping centre during the shortest day of the year might not cause us great concern. But at the eastern end, if in the mid-afternoon it threw its shadow onto adjoining residential area, that probably would concern us. And so we would take a different view to applying the criterion when we looked at impact on adjacent properties, whether that was wind or overshadowing or overlooking.
Not so much overshadowing, because there's some emphasis on shadowing the position of the sun. It's the sheer fact that you're going to have huge buildings right next to you, straight down into the backyard.
Yep, overlooking, yeah.
There's a population of a small suburb. And I guess this is particular to the closest residents, I'll acknowledge that.
Yep.
You probably don't care if you live over in Amaroo. And that's the impact I'm trying to explain.
Yeah.
So that if you do that, it's a bit unfair, and the people have already decided to settle, invest, and establish their way of life.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're very sensitive to those transitions. I think we'll be studying that very carefully in this process of our own initiative. But if we could get some submissions from the community, if that's an area that you'd really like to have a more detailed discussion, that would help us focus right in.
Before you go on that, I've got a question online.
Question coming from Facebook.
Hello.
Is the refresh only concerned with those 3 key areas, or is it more broad?
No, we can talk about any issue of interest in the town centre that relates to the planning framework. So that's really the only caveat. It has to be something that falls within the planning framework. We identified those as the issues that residents and discussions with Peter and through council came out as the highest priority, but more than happy to have a discussion about any other relevant planning matter.
I've been in Gungahlin since 2007, so before actually Ford came. Over the last couple of years, all I've seen is nothing but choked traffic out of all the corridors of Gungahlin. So down Horse Park Drive, Flemington Road, down towards the Lakes Club. I mean, how much longer do we have to put up with all this traffic congestion? Only because the town's getting bigger, like you said, you're doing all your developments, which means you're going to attract more cars. And over the last 3 or 4 years, all I've experienced is more and more traffic light. I go down, I can beat cars going down on my push bike down to the Jura Road. The light rail is blocking lots of turns to the right or turns to the left. It's just getting towards almost Sydney-like traffic congestion, when's it going to stop?
We've got some big projects underway to improve traffic flow out of Gungahlin. I've got some colleagues here who'll be able to talk to you in detail about construction programs for those particular roads. The light rail alignment is picked to optimise both the efficiency of the public transport and to minimise negative impacts on road transport. So it's an integrated transport system. I'd say top marks for riding a bike. That's actually a great way to move around the place, although I don't take lightly that the traffic congestion, an unfortunate comparison.
With your survey, so when you composed that survey,
Yep.
you guys have a look at the 2014 survey that the Gungahlin Community Council released?
People in my team have read over that a lot and drawn that information out, so we'll take all of that as background information to help us.
Because what I failed to see in this survey, this one is more concentrated on the bicycle and the height of the building. It doesn't mention about how we're going to use the land, or it doesn't mention about the parking facilities, or how this going to integrate with the rest of the suburbs in Gungahlin. So all these things I couldn't find on the survey. So
Sure. To a certain extent, parking is a factor of both the built form and the uses that occur within it, and also the structure of the road transport network. So we haven't asked particular questions about parking because a lot of that will fall out almost formulaic out of the parking code. So as I was saying earlier, a certain number of residential apartments will drive demand for a subsequent number of car parks, similar with an office building. But if there are particular balance points or imbalances there that you'd like us to have a look at, I'm very happy to hear that feedback too.
yeah, because I'm a bit worried whether we're going to lose the focus just concentrating on one bit and not looking at the problem as a whole. So that's my
If you think there's a gap in there, more than happy to expand that out.
So when you say residential development got parking, as in like saying your apartment building, you do mean that parking permit is provided by the developer as part of the development, or are you talking about when they build a new tower, no parking spots being built?
There's a bit of both there. So we have a parking code that requires particular parking rates.
So that's just to say it's in the street, Gungahlin. We're going to build this nice little development in the town centre. People won't have cars because it'll be so convenient, so we'll do it without parking spots. And then you go and look at the building, there's a building surrounded, there's cars parked all over everything. So if you don't provide parking in the development,
There are
people will park their cars all over.
There are different parking rates in town centres, and for some developments in town centres, parking can be reduced quite a bit. But the management of publicly available parking areas, whether they're on street or surface car parks, will be basically adjusted over time to make sure that we're giving preference to the highest valued uses. So in and around shops, we would preference short stay parking to encourage access for retail customers. In and around office precincts, we'd encourage long stay to suit workers. So we can refine those quite a bit to manage spillover from... Yeah, so same sort of approach there. If we found that office workers were parking in residential streets and parking over driveways, we would consult with the residents in that street to talk about different management regimes. So that might be time-limited parking on one side of the street or no parking on one side of the street. It's a tactic that we use in any busy area where we get encroachment parking. It works pretty well. Sorry, what I was what I was really getting at was, if we were talking about facilities for cyclists in an apartment building, we'd say you need to have bike storage that's very secure, whereas if it were bike storage for an office building, it's an employee who rides their bike in the morning, wants to store it during the day and then take it home at night. It doesn't need the same sort of facility, but they'll want a shower, whereas at home you can go and use your own shower.
cyclist commute in town along the White Bar Route. What I've noticed is that there's no consistent plan to address that. So I'm wondering, even though it's a Gungahlin refresh, whether you would entertain or whether it would be effective to provide input to look at a better realignment of a consistent bike path off-road that will take people from Gungahlin to Civic in a designed fashion. At the moment it's a bit piecemeal and it'll be chopped and people and bike will be having to divert themselves around a little bit when the light rail's finished. Is there capacity with the feedback to look at some of that? Or is it outside the scope?
It'll be outside the scope for this, but feed it in and we'll use it as a start. We'll talk to our colleagues in Transport Canberra. Basically, we just pull together as one government to respond to a suggestion like that, and we'll pull in whoever we need to talk to. So we'll have Roads ACT, our people from a planning perspective, we can drag in the active travel coordinator. This can come together pretty quickly to model that. Thinking about cycling facilities during construction, I'm not sure if you've ridden past Mitchell yet, but there's a dedicated temporary off-road facility there to make sure that cyclists are safe during the construction down Flemington Road. I'm a pretty keen cyclist, and that looks like a good, safe facility to me.
Yeah, so we're looking at something similar to that. If you could extend it, so if you actually had a similar path, you didn't have to mix it up with traffic and go from Darwin in, maybe not as grandeur as the new path provided along Sullivan's Creek, because that's like the super highway, so it's brilliant, and refurbished areas there, but at least something that's been designed that will cater for that, and then
So,
traffic problems might go away.
yep, we can bring you back some information on that, and we can join up projects across town. So working with the Inner North Community Council, we've been looking at options for cycle-friendly streets on the eastern side of Northbourne Avenue to get roughly from Dixon to Civic, so that it would offer a safe alternative on that eastern side of Northbourne. People on the western side can use the Sullivan's Creek path, people on the east might use some of the quieter streets, and we can make some adjustments to parking arrangements so that there's less chance of cyclists being hit by doors or similar. That would deal with the Dixon to Civic arm that you're talking about. Then we can look at the Dixon to Flemington Road, and then we've got the Flemington Road intersection to Gungahlin, and suddenly it's a network.
Yeah, I mean, the work we're doing with Canberra Metro, they're very open to suggestions, and they're very keen to help, but yeah, you're right, the hiccup is getting that response back from Transport Canberra, because it's not in the contract for the light rail buildings, then you can't expect them to go beyond that and build infrastructure that's not catered for.
But we can jump in and do a gap analysis there. Yeah. Yep.
Anything else on the town centre?
There's one, maybe two pending DA buildings in the process. I'm just wondering, is the outcome going to be held off until this refresh is finished, or is that still continuing?
We would prefer that really bold proposals waited for this discussion. There is a strict legal right, I guess, for someone to put in an application and to ask us to make a decision. And even if we decline their application, they may have appeal rights through the ACAT. So we're bound a little bit by legal process there. But so far, we're getting a good response from people who have been proposing new projects to be patient and to participate in this discussion.
But what about the ones that have already started the process and it's already been out for public consultation?
If it's been out for formal consultation, so as part of a development application, we would push on and determine that. We need to once it's been submitted.
You just have to approve it, restricting it to
Well, we'll be looking really carefully at the criteria and taking pretty careful account of the views that are coming in already, especially if they relate to how we would interpret that criterion.
Yes, all done?
All done?
I think the key takeaway, Gary's highlighted several times, if you've got a view, it's really important to put it down and get it into the process. I think that one of the challenges is, you've got to define as clear that there's a lot that impacts that. The roads to and from town centre are part of the experience, but the focus is on the town centre plan. recognise that it's in that box that you've got to focus for this piece. And then obviously there are topics that relate to what's inside the town centre complex. All right, if we're done with questions, both online and live, we might move on to the next item.
Stay on the topic, we've got about 25 slides on the planning refresh, which I'll just pop up to that. If you missed out on one tonight, you can hop onto your stage.
I'll introduce Helena, and people will see Helena out at pop-ups and talking to people, leading this process for us. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I did have a question. So Gary, you highlighted I think the planner sessions and drop-ins. Have dates for those been set yet?
We're still in the process of setting the dates and the venues of those. We should have done next week.
Okay.
Hop onto your stage, I'll give you details.
For viewers at home, dates will be set in the next week.
Absolutely, thanks.
We can publish on our website.
Well, thanks very much, Gary. I really appreciate the work the directorate's doing in getting us engaged in this process. There are some of these things we can't change because the structure's on they're right on now, but what we do is try and influence how things evolve to accommodate those changes. So next topic, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Scott is going to give us an update on the planning process around capital metro construction. That's right. Construction by capital metro, properly like that. Clicker? Just put the little thing on your all right, there you go, Scott. I'll get out of the way.
Good evening. Thank you. Whilst Gary might have received an elevation in position this evening, I'm clearly just the gap filler before the main event with the Minister, so I'll try and get my message across very quickly.
I think as long as there's no gap in the planning.
So my name is Scott Lyle. I'm from the Transport Canberra Light Rail team. I'm the government's project director for the Light Rail project for stages 1 and 2. I would like to thank you for adding me to the agenda this evening at late notice, or short notice. We are about to embark on some fairly significant changes to the traffic around, in and around Gungahlin, and so it was a great opportunity for me to come along this evening and let you know what is coming up. Changes to Flemington Road and also in and around the Gungahlin town centre. So I'll start with Flemington Road. Now, I'm not expecting that you will be able to read this map from the back of the room. However, if you have an interest to get right into all the detail, there's certainly some flyers on the table over there that Nicole will be happy to hand out at the end of the evening. And I will say in advance as well that a lot of the information, including the maps that are up on the screen this evening, will be on the Transport Canberra website sometime tomorrow, so easy access to be able to have a look at the detail. So essentially what is happening on Flemington Road in the not too distant future is that we'll be closing lanes such that traffic is restricted to a single lane in each direction between Well Station Drive and Federal Highway. It will be commencing on the 17th of March and be in place at the north end for approximately 9 months and the south end for approximately 7 months. So before I get into the detail, obviously to respond to that question, I'll say why are we doing this? So the reason for restricting the traffic to that extent is that it opens up a much larger area for construction, and so it's far more efficient for the construction. And our delivery partners, Canberra Metro, have forecast that there would be 2 to 3 months saving in the construction period by doing the work under traffic in this manner, rather than doing it piecemeal by having to have continual closures every day under stop-go and that sort of thing. So the benefit is, I guess, we're taking the approach of a little bit more pain over a shorter period of time rather than a greatly extended period of construction. A couple of important points to note with the closure of Flemington Road, that the intersection with Lysart will be closed, so there will be detours in place. The side road access on the western side of Flemington Road that services the businesses up in that area between north of Sanford will remain open during this period, so those businesses will still be able to have vehicle access. Cycle access will remain as well, so at the moment we've already got the temporary bike path in on the eastern side of Flemington Road from Well Station Drive down to Sanford, so that will continue to be open and in use. South of Sanford, where we have on-road cycle path on both southbound and northbound, they will also be maintained. They will have to be moved across one lane, of course, because we'll be closing one of the lanes, but they will still be available to cyclists. So I'm not going to pretend that there won't be any impacts from this. We have done extensive traffic modelling before we've agreed to Canberra Metro's proposal to put these lane closures in place. Our traffic modelling, which is extensive across the whole area, including all of the intersections, indicates that there'll be about a 4-minute increase or a 4-minute delay in the morning southbound peak, but an insignificant delay to the northbound afternoon peak.
Have you been on that road now at 8:30 during the day?
Not recently. I have been, but not recently.
Why didn't they fix the road before they started all this? They should have put 4-lane road in and let the traffic flow. For 10 years we've had to put up with that rubbish there, and I'm a retailer in Mitchell. My business is down by a third already. Now you're going to reduce it down by more. So what sort of compensation do we get as a retailer? I mean, you can't even clean the gardens, you can't even make Mitchell look presentable.
So let's just identify that Scott's delivering a light rail project and doesn't clean gutters. And so we have the opportunity to direct those sort of questions to Mr. Fitzharris afterwards. So I have some real concerns about the map that says Horse Park Drive in its current state is an alternate route. So I hear you, but let's Scott run his piece.
I live in Bondi. I moved out of Bondi. It takes me 30 minutes to drive from Murray Baby. It took me 40 minutes to drive from Bondi to Mitchell. It was just ridiculous.
I appreciate the challenge.
Yeah.
Let's let Scott get to the end of his update.
I'm not pretending to be able to stand here in front of you with all the answers to the traffic issues in and around Flemington Road. I'm explaining what immediate issues will be occurring as a result of the construction. But we are maintaining, as I've said already, the side road access to businesses on the western side of Flemington Road. Excuse me. So the other changes that will be occurring shortly in Gungahlin Town Centre. So, as you would have seen already, Kate Crace on the southern side of Hibberson Street is already closed to traffic. That enables Canberra Metro to get in and do the roadworks in Kate Crace. So when those roadworks are complete, including traffic signals at the intersection of Kate Crace and Hibberson, that will enable us to close Hibberson Street to vehicular traffic. It will be closed from Kate Crace through to Gungahlin Place to vehicular traffic. Obviously, pedestrian and cycle access will be maintained. It will be on the website tomorrow. The one we have tonight is only Flemington Road, but these ones will be available on the website, on the Transport Canberra website tomorrow. So, the closure of Hibberson Street to vehicular traffic is permanent, yes. I'll get to the final state with when light rail construction is complete, but it will be a pedestrian area with light rail. So this is scheduled to occur subject to the completion of the roadworks, etc. I've just described, to be put in place on the 10th of April. So in addition to the closure of Hibberson, I'll just mention Kate Crace, the north-south movement on Kate Crace will still be maintained after Hibberson is closed. And also on Hinder. For the majority of the time, the north-south movement on Hinder will also be available. It will be closed at Hibberson on occasion to enable the construction to take place. So in addition to the light rail construction works, we've also got my friends in the other part of Transport Canberra and City Services are starting work on the Gungahlin bus interchange. So you can see that the southern side of Hibberson Street on the southbound side of Gungahlin Place will be closed for the initial road widening and other works that have to take place there to enable the improvement works to the bus interchange. That work will be starting late March, early April and go through to about May of this year. Phase 2, there is no change in terms of the light rail, so the light rail construction is what's causing the closure of Hibson Street. So phase 2 is solely around the changes that will be occurring in Gungahlin Place for the improvements to the bus interchange. So you can see from the map there, both sides of Gungahlin Place on the north side of Hibson will be closed, and the northbound side south of Hibson will also be closed to enable the construction of the bus interchange. And that will occur between June and through to December of this year. So phase 3 is completion of the works in the Gungahlin bus interchange, which then enables the buses to adopt their new routes, and that will be from December 17 onwards. So the finished state looks like this, that the light rail, obviously as you're aware, is running down the centre of Flemington Road, straight through into the terminus just on the eastern side of Gungahlin Place, and Hibson Street from Kate Crace through to Gungahlin will become pedestrianised, only with the trams running down the middle of the road. There are changes to bus routes, which are still just being finalised, and there will be further information available on the changes to the bus routes. What's on these maps that will be on the website tomorrow is just the generic changes, which you might be able to pick up there. There's a dark blue line with a bus symbol on it, indicating the buses moving around the outside. But there will be much more detail with the changes to individual routes available shortly. So there is a upcoming community forum on the 22nd of March, which is hosted by Canberra Metro, and so that's an opportunity for you to come along and get down into the detail through the construction process. Subject to conversations with our friends from Canberra Metro, I think it's likely from the sounds of things that we should be getting some people from Transport Canberra City Services on the construction of the bus interchange as well, so that we can, and also our friends at Transport Canberra for the buses, so that we can answer whatever other questions, detailed questions you might have. So that will be on the 22nd of March. And as I've said, the maps that have been on the screen this evening will be available on Transport Canberra website. Okay.
Thank you. We'll take questions. We do have one from Facebook, so let's need to jump on first.
Thank you. Briefly, are you able to outline the communication plan of these continual updates to residents and the public? I know that's a pretty big ask.
I guess I can hit on a few of the key points. At businesses along Hibson Street, for example, we've already started with door knocking. When I say we, I'm talking about our delivery partners, Canberra Metro. So they've already, started door knocking and talking one-on-one with the business owners through there. Also potentially impacted businesses along Flemington Road. The use of social media will continue also with My Gungahlin and other social media on Facebook and certainly on Facebook and Transport Canberra website.
Any questions for John?
Thank you for that. I wonder, is it going to be possible to get from the bus, the light rail, undercover? If it's going to be wet or hot, for me it should all be put under an umbrella of protection from the weather. It's crazy to expect someone to get out of the bus to -6 degrees and walk 100 metres to get into a
Yeah, Ben might be able to answer just the extent of weather cover that will be provided in the bus interchange itself, but then there's also the combination of existing awnings from the shops. At this stage, it's not intended that we would be putting cover on the side stops, side platform stops in Gungahlin. There is a centre stop and 2 side stops, and so that's designed that you unload from the side closest to the shop and you load from the centre, and in the centre we'll have weather cover.
On the interior here, there's bus symbols down Donington Road with lines through them. So does that mean that you're closing bus stops or do you want you?
No, what's happening is the bus lane south of Sandford is being closed, and so the buses and the general traffic will share the same lane.
Scott, you mentioned some of these closures will save time in construction and speed up. When is it planned to be operational?
The date in the contract is 31st of August 2018 to start services.
Thank you for that. It's an interesting presentation on the road changes. Is Canberra Metro adhering to the construction timeline? Are they giving all milestones?
Pretty much, but I don't believe that there's a risk to the completion date at this point in time. But a lot can happen in construction. There's still 15, 18 months to go. Weather has a big impact, but at this point in time, I don't see that Canberra Metro isn't capable of achieving the completion date.
Maybe too much of a detailed question, but is Canberra Metro going to have a chat tonight?
Well, there are some people from Canberra Metro in the audience. If you wanted to have a more detailed conversation with them at the end, I'm sure they wouldn't.
Do not have formal time.
No, they don't. No.
They have a separate briefing scheduled for the 27th.
Okay, look, this is a very simple question. There's an off-road pathway for bicycles which runs along the footpath outside Epic.
Yes.
Showrooms.
Yes.
So you go on-road, then you go off-road. It's a bit hard from the diagram here to know whether that's going to stay in place during construction and then afterwards, or is that going to be...
No, during construction that will be closed, and so the on-road cycle path will be available, but that off-road in front of Epic there will be closed during the construction period.
Just one more. So, in fact, you said that you're modelling checking before the delay in the walking segment. Is that on Flemington Road, or is that across all the roads that you've shown us?
No, that's modelling of Flemington Road for the impact of the lane closures.
So you said you're going to close the lines so that you can save 3 months. So what's the, do you have like the labour's going to work in the shift basis, in the night and morning, or just going to be...
It's not the intent that they'll be working 24/7, no, but by closing these lanes it does allow a much larger construction area and hence makes the construction more efficient.
Open the lines in the peak hours and then close it?
No, that was really the decision that's been made, and this proposal was put to us by Canberra Metro because in normal circumstances, as you would have seen on Northbourne Avenue or on other roads that are being impacted by the construction of light rail at the moment, that we don't close the lanes during the peak periods. However, we have agreed with Canberra Metro on this closure to keep, once we restrict to one lane in each direction, we've agreed that we will keep it in that configuration through to the completion of the construction in this area, because it's that much more efficient for the construction and will mean it will be finished sooner in this area. So it's not possible to reopen it again. Once you make the decision, it's not possible to reopen it again. However, as risk mitigation, Canberra Metro has agreed that we will not tear up the road for 7 days after the switch to make sure that we can monitor the traffic movement and see that it is no worse than our expectations.
Have you consulted with the action buses?
Yes, absolutely.
Whether they need to change the routes or
yes.
whether we need to give more buses so that we can help the public rather than taking the car they can rather than getting all the crowds from the other side of the Gungahlin to the Gungahlin town centre and take them all to this road, so probably some of the buses can actually use the Gungahlin drive to get into the city. So have you guys considered all these things? Because I know it's going to be closed in 2 weeks' time, or
17th of March?
yeah. So have you considered all this one? Have the public been notified with all these arrangements so they know where to take the bus and how to get into all this?
So the simple answer to your question is that yes, we have consulted for quite some time with Transport Canberra buses, and that's largely why all of the traffic modelling was done, to understand what impact it might have to the on-time running of the buses. And our colleagues from Action Buses are here, and they've been involved in, and some of them may reroute, but they're still working through those details, which will be available shortly. But that information will be provided. So there are detailed plans that we're just finalising for Gungahlin that all go route by route and explain what the changes are and what changes there might be to bus stops as well, and we'll provide that same level of information for Flemington Road.
So there's no changes based on the research you guys do?
I can't answer that now, but we could possibly ask a Action Buses person after this presentation, because there are some guys here from Action.
Yep. Once the light rail goes through Flemington Road, how long before you get the road fixed to an acceptable standard?
I can only comment on the completion of the roadworks associated with the light rail, and they will all be finished at the same time. Yes. Because the roadworks have to be done first, and so in fact you'll see an improvement to the roadworks, if you like, because they'll be finished and open to enable the widening of the median to provide the space for the construction of the light rail.
And is there going to be a stop at Mitchell?
It's not in the current plans, no, but the design is such that when patronage suggests that we should be putting a stop there, that the alignment of the tracks will allow for that.
I've got staff members of all units here hoping to catch the light rail. They've got to bring their cars.
Well, the patronage studies that were done earlier on have indicated that there wasn't sufficient need at that location, but there is a stop further down at Epic and one north from there as well.
Not encouraging any business to come to you should bypass it. You should be making another fish route. You shouldn't be making a lonely standalone something.
So I can't comment on that from the planning point of view of what we should or shouldn't be doing in terms of adjacent development.
Well, I've just invested $1 million into business there, and you're not encouraging me to make any money.
Okay, so what the Minister's office to have a go at that when she's finished. So any, her turn. So anything else on the proposed business process? Just one more.
So from this map, there's no bus stops between Barton Highway and Water Station Drive. Either way.
No, that's correct, because the
So there's no stop.
no.
All right. All
That,
done.
sorry, I just confirm that with, that's correct? Yep.
Okay. All right. I think we're done on adoption. Thank you, Scott. This is breaking news. This is the first.
It is, yes. Well, other than contact that's been made with local business.
One of the challenges at the moment getting out of Gungahlin, just as part of this transition, is there is an endless hunt every morning for the alternate route. Unfortunately, there are no good alternate routes at the moment, so that will get better, but really short. All right, so my protocol skills have been sorely tested today. Most senior member of the government up last, so I should be castigated for that. But it's actually a genius plan, because I think a number of issues have come out that are cross-portfolio, and if no one else is a champion for solving the cross-portfolio challenges, Farah. So thank you. Megan has offered to come under the banner of providing an update on the commitments made in the last election. It pains and stress to me that that's not all going to happen in the first week of the government, and it's a 4-year program. If you're wondering what that means, the last issue had actually quite a handy summary of that. If you don't have a hard copy, I have a few of the collectors series available. and it's online, of course. So without further ado, ask Megan to come speak to that. The clippy thing there.
Do that. Hello, everyone. I do feel compelled in this audience to say Happy International Women's Day. And to all those women at home, I hope there's plenty watching. I know this isn't the family-friendliest hour, but I know the Community Council's tried hard over a long period of time to resolve the issue, and I think having a live broadcast is one way where more members of the community can actually get engaged in this conversation, because so many of them are so interested in it. But this is often a difficult time to come along, but it's great to see so many people here. There are some questions specifically raised which I will come to about roads and road transport and planning, which I've been coming to these meetings for 6 years, and as a member of the Assembly for 2 years, as a Minister for 1, and there isn't a meeting that goes by where we don't talk about those issues, and certainly in terms of the specifics about getting in and out, we made a number of commitments over the last couple of years and have a number of commitments that were made during the election campaign, which I can talk to. But I'd be really grateful to take a bit of a break from some of the sort of the planning and transport, as important as it is, just to give you a sense of some of the other commitments that Labor made in the lead up to last year's election, and those that we will be delivering over the next 4 years as well. So with that in mind, I might start with some of the non-transport and roads and planning related commitments, because they sort of go to some of the other questions that people have had about how the government goes towards planning for regions and what sort of public infrastructure and public services we provide. So I thought I'd start with health, because I'm now the Minister for Health, so was appointed to that position in November last year after the election, and it's an enormous and really important portfolio, and we made a number of really significant commitments around healthcare across the whole territory, which have an impact on everyone, no matter where you live. But importantly, a lot of the healthcare commitments that we made during the election were about bringing some of those health services closer to you, particularly to the extent that we can play a role in primary healthcare like GPs, and we play a limited role in that, but community healthcare and nurse walk-in centres were a really important part of our package of commitments. So we have made a commitment to build a nurse walk-in centre here in Gungahlin. Has anyone ever used a walk-in clinic? Yay. For those of you who haven't, there's one currently in Belconnen and one in Tuggeranong. They're open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. Christmas Day, Good Friday, every Sunday, every Saturday, and they're staffed by nurses who can really look into a whole lot of issues that you might otherwise have been presenting to an emergency department for, or you might want to see a GP, but the times that I've used it, for example, a really windy day and our kids did a school sporting carnival, dust and eyes, wasn't clearing by 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. Just we go to the nurse walk-in centre. We're seen within about half an hour. Nurse can just wash out your eye, reassure you that everything's okay, give you referrals if you perhaps need further follow-up, or you go home very satisfied that everything's okay and that that dust has all been flushed out. So that's the sort of care that is currently a gap in our system. So we're really excited about the prospect of delivering that within the region, because we know in the last year I think there were 35,000 presentations to our 2 walk-in centres, but most of those came from people who live pretty close to Belconnen and pretty close to Tuggeranong. But we've made commitments to build one here in Gungahlin, opening midway through next year, one in Western Creek, and down the track over this term, one in the inner north as well. But there's a lot of work around what's happening with the health centre in the city and Dixon, so that one will be delivered much later in the term. We also, for those of you who don't know, I think everybody does now, there's a new hospital being built on the University of Canberra campus that will open next year. And that's a very significant commitment that the government made a couple of years ago. So that will really strengthen the hospital services provided on the north side. But that hospital is a subacute hospital, really a rehabilitation hospital. So what that will do is help the hospital system as a whole where we have Calvary and our major acute hospital at Canberra, take some people that would otherwise might spend an extra week or so in Canberra Hospital, be able to move them into a dedicated rehabilitation hospital on the University of Canberra campus, or for people that have needed to go into a major hospital but need rehabilitation, they'll be able to get day treatment and also overnight treatment at UCPH, as we're calling it, University of Canberra Public Hospital. So it really does take the pressure off our major hospitals, but also provides just another step in the healthcare journey between GPs, community health centres and a big major acute hospital like Canberra. One thing I've learned since becoming the Minister for Health is the Canberra Hospital Emergency Department is the 9th busiest emergency department in the country. So we're not the 9th biggest hospital, but we are the 9th busiest emergency department in the country, and that's largely because we have a lot of regional cases present here, and we're the major hospital for the New South Wales southern region, so and a very busy and growing local population too. So we'll also be increasing what's called hospital in the home, and that is where if you are currently in hospital and you need to get some follow-up treatment, but you don't really need to be in hospital, you don't want to be in hospital, you can either get hospital services in the home where a nurse might come and visit you up to 2 or 3 times a day and provide you with the sort of services that you need at home. We'll be expanding that reach out into people's homes, but also providing the same sort of service at our community health centre. So with one here in Gungahlin, we're looking to grow the sorts of services that you can get in the community health centre here in Gungahlin, as well as in the other ones in the regions too. On schools, we made a commitment and work is pretty much underway in terms of this new suburb of Taylor in North Gungahlin. So we'll be opening a new primary school in Taylor in 2019, and that will start to pick up some of the population growth in Jacker, Moncrief, and Taylor itself, and also some work that we committed to last year, but locked in the election campaign about a new high school in the Gungahlin region, as well as upgrades to Franklin School and Gold Creek as well. There's already work underway to upgrade Harrison and Bonner and Amaroo, most of which have actually been delivered for this school year. So again, the enormous pressure on infrastructure and public services as a whole in Gungahlin has been greater than almost anyone predicted, and we've seen that in our school system and our road system. A bit less so in our health system, but we've got plans in place and have made commitments to deliver on those. A couple of other smaller scale things which seem to get a little bit less profile throughout the election campaign period, but for those of you who might have a specific interest in some of them, we have, and it does feature on the front page of Gunsmoke, although I had to look twice when I first saw it to make sure it wasn't Manus Island. But this is the really remarkable Mulligan's Flat Nature Reserve, for those of you who've never been to it, just on the edge of Ford and soon to be on the edge of Throsby. The predator-proof fence is being extended there, but we've also made a commitment to building and helping the Woodlands and Wetlands Trust that manage Mulligan's Flat on our behalf to build the start of a real ecotourism research hub there. They have space available in Throsby, which has been provided to the Trust to build an ecotourism learning centre, and we're talking to the Trust now about what a commitment to build some infrastructure either on the Throsby side or actually within the reserve itself might look like to provide this amazing experience where it can either be across the road from your house or just, a brief drive from the region or anywhere in the ACT to be in a world-class, very unique habitat where we are reintroducing species that have not lived on the Australian mainland in some cases for over 100 years. And it's a beautiful place, and I think at this time of the year they will start to ramp up their twilight tours, which I know that the Trust has been and presented on here, and if you haven't been on one, it is truly a pretty magical experience. And for those people, lucky people who live in Ford, I know many of them get to experience it every day, but it's a real treasure. So we've made a commitment to that. In terms of Throsby, we've also made commitments to delivering the Throsby sporting fields, because again there's pressure on sporting fields also in the region. The provision of the school at Taylor will provide for sporting fields within the school, and also a larger precinct of sort of sporting fields up in Taylor as well. There is, and I know this is one Peter's had a long-standing interest in, but many other people have as well, around a smart work hub in Gungahlin. So in fact, I know that the Commonwealth has made the commitment to bringing a department here, and I spoke with Zed Selja on the weekend about where that's up to and aligning some of the work that's happening in the Commonwealth potentially with the work that we have committed to, which is to explore bringing some more jobs to the town centre. So the ACT government invested money, and in 2015, when New House opened, that's 750 jobs have been brought by the ACT government into the town centre. It was a huge investment and a huge mark of confidence in the town centre, and a real boost to actually having a big core of people working here in the town centre, providing sort of traffic for retailers and small businesses here, particularly Monday to Friday. So that's had an impact, and that we'll look to continue to find opportunities to bring more jobs here, where the ACT government's probably limited in terms of more jobs that it can provide here, but I just encourage you to think about how many people work in this building every day, through the library, CIT and the school. There's quite a few hundred staff here, so the ACT government's sort of job commitment to the town centre is well over 1,000 people work for the ACT government within the town centre, and that's much more significant than what the Commonwealth is even proposing now, as welcome as that is. Our proposal is more to work with partners, particularly the Commonwealth, where maybe we can facilitate and partner with them to provide a workspace here that's not just about picking up one department and bringing them here, but providing, for those of you who know the Commonwealth, they have office space in Sydney and Melbourne, and if you work for the Commonwealth and you're in one of those cities, you can basically go in for the day and use Commonwealth facilities. We think there's a real opportunity here, driven a lot by some work I know that Peter was involved in through Regional Development Australia, that's a model that could really work in Gungahlin, particularly because Gungahlin is also on the through route for people coming in from Yass and Goulburn, many of which commute into Canberra for the Commonwealth every day. So there's an opportunity there. And of course then we have further commitments to roads. So the roads at the moment, and the conversation we can have it separately for those of you who haven't spoken to this about, but I know it, like I live here too, and I've lived here for 10 years, and I know what it's like to get in and out. We've made enormous progress over the last couple of years on getting the funding available and delivering on duplicating the major roads. I've said all along, and I'll say it again, until I think your question was when's it going to stop, and it's 18 months to 2 years away before Horse Park, Gundaroo, Flemington and Light Rail are all well and truly delivered. It will be very substantial investment in infrastructure. It will have been later than ideally was the case. Equally, the population growth it's just boomed, and it was a bit unexpected. There were other things that came into the mix at the time, like changes to Commonwealth policy, the global financial crisis, the growth of Brindabella Park. All of those things have factored into it, but we have made commitments to extend the duplication of all major roads in and out. Horse Park Drive is already funded, and part of it is underway. Stage 2 is, the tender is about to go out, I think, yep. And stage 3 will be not long after that. It's all funded in the budget. Gundaroo Drive is underway, the second stage of that. We expect to be able to fund early in this term, and then beyond that, the duplication of William Slim Drive as well, so to be delivered in this term. So that big major east-west and north-south work for our major arterial roads will be completed. At the moment, and I say it again, what's happened, because those roads are under such pressure, is almost all the other roads are under pressure. So, I know you just sort of can't seem to go anywhere without there being a bottleneck. But I think you'll see where you do make a change, a lot of those other bottlenecks start to reduce. So I know there are people already calling for more roads to be duplicated, but I would ask again for more patience about just letting us do this major work. Doubling the capacity of our major arterial roads will make an enormous difference to roads like Mirabai Drive, Gungahlin Drive, Anthony Rolfe Avenue, and once we get the flow working better, once we have more public transport, for example, at the moment we've got a reasonably frequent route between Belconnen and Gungahlin, but we did make a commitment last year to make that a rapid route, so that Gungahlin to Belconnen will become a rapid route this year. It'll be slower than it will ultimately be once that road is duplicated, because when you duplicate a road, you don't just duplicate, particularly a major road, you don't just do it for cars. You get the benefit of public transport being able to move a lot quicker, as well as having priority lanes for buses at intersections, and we're building that into Gundaroo Drive in particular, because that's a really quick route through to Belconnen. On that too, so we've got the Black Rapid, which is the Belconnen to Gungahlin route, which will start. We've committed to a trial of an express bus between Gungahlin and Tuggeranong, which I know has come up here a lot. We're really interested to see if people will catch that, because a number of people tell us that they will. So we're working through the best and quickest route for that. More people who live in Tuggeranong come to Gungahlin now for work, but quite a few people in Gungahlin go to Tuggeranong. If that means that more people are going to catch the bus, it's going to take cars off the road. We can look to make that a viable service, but we'll give it a trial, and we'll get as much advice as possible out there for people, so they know that it's an option for them, and do some consultation on the best route and the best times. But we'd like to see how that goes as well. And the question about the Sullivan's Creek path, which I used on the weekend, it's nearly finished all the way into City. Yeah, one day Canberra, a lot of cycle paths in Canberra will look that way. That is a very, very, very good piece of infrastructure in the inner north, and carries a lot of bikes and people every day. And I can verify that temporary route's also a really good one. But you're right about all those missing gaps in our cycle network. It's really important for people who currently use it, but more important to get people that aren't fully confident on road to get them cycling, because we really do have an outstanding cycle network here. I know it can get better. And on that note, we've got our first ever cycle bike and ride. Park and pedal. Oh, we've got our first park and pedal. So I don't know if you know about that. That was opened a couple of weeks ago. That's at down at the bottom of the Arboretum, where you can park your car for free for the day and cycle into work in the city. So you don't have to cycle all the way into city. You can park there for the day and cycle that final 3 kilometres. 3 kilometres. Yep. But our first walk and ride week. Yeah. Our first walk and ride week in the next. Is it next week? It is next week. Our first walk and ride week. So a bit of a week to celebrate walking and riding to school, to work on the weekend. We'll have that, our first one next week. So we'll have a whole lot of activities and hopefully a bit of excitement and a bit of profiling of how you can walk and cycle around the city, how easy it can be. And one of the, on that vein, another one of the significant commitments that we've made is around walking and cycling to school, making school zones much safer, making it easier for kids to walk and cycle to school, and really importantly, making it easier for parents to be confident their kids can walk and cycle to school safely. And there's some tremendous programs, both in terms of encouraging kids to ride or walk, giving them the skills to ride and walk, but doing some really small infrastructure work around schools, which makes it a lot safer. So there's a lot of commitments in there. They will be delivered over the period of this term. I will keep you updated. The major mechanism to do that will largely be, in terms of big funding announcements, will be in each budget. So come June, when we have the first budget of the new term, we'll have a lot more information about which ones are coming when. But it is a 4-year program too, so as much as, just like you, I'd like to get on and get it all done tomorrow, there will be, and it's important, as we've seen with the roadworks, we want to get them all done as quickly as we can. So with all of that, I'm very happy to take any questions that people have. Online?
Yeah, just before they scroll off the screen and lose them.
Yeah.
Why are we expanding Harrison School and not the Franklin Early Childhood School?
So Harrison was identified in last year's budget for expansion, and Franklin was subject to a lot of debate last year. Some debate here, but a lot of debate around a proposal to develop part of the 2 vacant sites next to Franklin. So the school community is, because I don't know if you know about Franklin School, has a childcare centre and a preschool to year 2. It's an early learning school, early childhood school, and it's not yet settled within the Franklin community or the school community, of which there are people from all suburbs in Gungahlin, about whether an expansion of Franklin makes it a primary school, preschool to year 6, or a much larger, P to 2 school. So whether we maintain it as an early childhood school for the region, or whether we make it really a primary school for Franklin, is a discussion that I think we need to have a little bit more time to have. Franklin still got some room to grow in the school itself, although it was filling up very quickly, but in a sense it doesn't have a priority enrolment zone like other schools do because it's an early childhood school. I think there are people who feel very strongly about the early childhood school and having one in this region, because there was no early childhood school in Franklin. None of the other schools will be early childhood schools. That would mean this region doesn't have an early childhood school. So, yep.
Questions from the floor? Yes, here in front.
Not really a question, but to acknowledge things that have improved.
Oh, thank you.
Signalisation of that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay,
great.
That traffic used to really back up the place where you're about talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be much better. It's all like this.
There is a bit, yeah.
That's good.
Great. That's great to hear, yeah. Because there were...
So it doesn't help with getting past but once you do get past that.
No, I know. Look, Gundaroo Drive was the big bottleneck. It was, I think it was 10 days after I was elected, I came to this meeting and we talked about the survey results that you talked about before, Henley, and it was the first thing identified as the most immediate priority to fix. So,
it's a remarkable project because I've seen people on Facebook admit they are wrong.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a bit of unfortunate timing, maybe
Yeah.
budgeting that
Yeah.
all these roadworks are occurring at the same time. So
Yeah.
you weren't able to get one to leverage off the other by providing an alternate.
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
But when it's all finished, but what it still will do is have lots of people in cars, probably generally a single driver in that car, and that's how they get over the So that'll be great for the drivers who people want to drive their cars, but it doesn't take cars off the road. Change that ultimate traffic volume.
Yeah.
So as part of active travel, as part of looking at all these other alternatives, are there some, left and right of arc thinking of things like, I read overseas that Norway are actually providing a rebate or an incentive, a lump bunch of money to go out and buy an electric assist bike.
Yeah.
So that if you're going to jump in your car, you're the only occupant, it doesn't matter if you jump on your electric assist bike, or maybe on a bike, you're a good thoroughfare.
Yeah.
Is there scope in your thinking and planning through some of the government departments to go a bit lateral on plans to help reduce traffic overall?
Yeah. I mean, one of the big drivers behind investing in public transport is to get more cars off the road, because building roads is really expensive, maintaining roads is really expensive, and the future costs to budgets, to lifestyles, to productivity, and to the environment in particular. I think shortly, and someone might be able to, one of our experts in the audience might be able to remind me of the date, but very soon transport emissions will make up 60% of the carbon emissions we have in the ACT. If we don't start to bring that down, You know, we're really reasonably bad offenders in terms of carbon emissions compared nationally. But we're doing a lot in our policy settings around renewable energy to bring that down. But cars do emit an awful lot of carbon, as do trucks and all other vehicles. So we have an active travel office, which is great for out-of-the-box thinking, and is really encouraging lots of conversations around the community. There was quite a large conference at University of Canberra this morning that I spoke at around. It was really focused on how we have sort of healthy futures for our kids and what do urban environments look like. How do we influence the planning framework? How do we make it easier for kids to play? How do we make it easier for kids to be healthy? Active travel, walking and cycling is a really important part of that. There's a lot of investment by the government. We've made some commitments. It's not specific to Gungahlin, but partly because we can't do everything at once, is building a major bike way, similar to the civic off-road path in the Belconnen Town Centre. So what we've done in the past is probably invest a little bit in one region and a little bit in another region. We've made a significant investment to upgrade bike paths and have sort of separated bike paths in and out of the town centre to connect with sort of the off-road paths, but have a real segregation between cyclists, pedestrians and cars in the Belconnen Town Centre. There's going to be lots of people living in the Belconnen Town Centre pretty soon. If we can start to model what this looks like and encourage more people to use it, I think we've reached a bit of a peak in terms of cycling use around those people that are really confident, really fit, and are very happy to sort of commute in all weathers. Where we're sort of dropping off is on kids and women, not just commuting, but even having a bike and using it. I think a lot of people here have bikes but never use them. Could I just make a really quick comment on this? Is pretty unrelated, but I live in the town, like around the town centre, on parking. The amount of people who have double garages, and whenever they're open, their cars are on the road and the garage is chock-a-block full of stuff, is something our planning framework can't really account for, but I think I see it all the time. And it's not just Gungahlin, but you know, that idea of we have a planning framework. You know, human behaviour is you know, pretty curious. Oh, it's some pretty big houses with pretty big garages. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
No, the particular issue I think was the development of
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was proposed with the GCC at the time. We raised concern about the lack of parking in that development. We were told, don't worry, they'll all walk or bicycles. And then once it was built, they parked their cars all over the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
People, and in fact, actually, you know, for someone on a low income car can actually be a very fashionable choice. It's not significantly, you know, single lower, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. As long as you have to provide parking.
Yeah, you do.
Sort of say, I mean, I think I'm a big supporter of block parking. I think it's a very good idea, but and it should reduce the number of cars for households. I think we still have cars that
Yeah, but the broader question around transport policy is around what happens with autonomous vehicles, what happens with private autonomous vehicles, public autonomous vehicles. There are, you know, the real question is around how we move around and what our mobility is like. There are services that are now starting to pop up in some parts of the world where, you know, and people have talked about the future of transport breaking down and disrupting things like whether or not you have public or private transport. So I'm aware that there's recently basically a subscription style service to transport that's being trialled, I think, in the UK, where you subscribe and you pay a certain amount, and within that you might be able to get access to a bus or a taxi or light rail or an Uber, or perhaps in the future an autonomous vehicle or an electric car or a bike. But you pay one subscription fee, a bit like Netflix, really. I mean, it's sort of that. I mean, a lot of, I think, transport policy people are talking that seemed to be 10 years away, and now it's maybe 5 years away. We have car sharing here. Uber is is significant. In most major cities around the world now, people will make different decisions about car ownership based on that. They might not have a car, but they might not have the second or third car. And that sort of shift is going to be really... I think on the question about cycling and, the developments in that particular precinct around... and there was recently debate, I know, around whether we should duplicate Anthony Rolfe Avenue. And my personal view at this point is I think that would be disastrous for the town centre. It would be disastrous for anyone moving from that side of the town centre to get here, because I'm pretty comfortable with, my young kids crossing one lane of traffic at traffic lights even. But when it becomes 2 lanes of traffic, trying to get people to walk across there, I think we should... our first instinct should not always be to duplicate a road, but we've hit a real milestone in the history of the city around public transport. Light rail is going to... So the figures out of the Gold Coast is when light rail started operating, public transport usage went up by 25%. So it wasn't just people catching light rail, but there were more people just getting on public transport and leaving their car at home. And if you take one interesting example is to think about what the roads look like during school holidays. A lot of people come off the road during school holidays, and before I had kids, I used to think, why is the traffic great today, And you realise there's a very significant correlation with school holidays. And if you think about, I still haven't been able to get a figure, but people are telling me it's sort of taking somewhere between 5 and 8% of cars off the road. Now, if we can have that same effect with public transport as a school holiday effect, if our roads could be like that more and more often, that's hugely significant. So we've got lots of reasons to do that. Productivity, it costs our economy a lot of money. It costs us a lot of money, our environment, and quality of life. Because if more people are catching public transport, that gets quicker, and more people are off the road. If you need to use your car, that gets quicker. I don't think anyone would prefer to be stuck in traffic than be at home or running their kids. Yeah. Yeah. Mitchell, yeah. Yep. I mean, I don't know that specific circumstance, but every time I drive for Mitchell a lot, there's actually new buildings and new businesses. So I'm not sure what you mean by it seems to be forgotten, because there's, a lot more cafes in there, there's new businesses opening up, there's new construction along Flemington Road. The depot will be there, that's where the light rail depot will be. There's a whole precinct over one side where, I know it's there because Flip Out, yeah. 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 Well, I think, and I'm not too sure of the history of either, but Fish Week's been around for a long time, and it's got a significant critical mass. It's in an interesting location, pretty close to the airport. I mean, the specific rationale for not having a stop in Mitchell was one that was consulted on really broadly, and in many different forms over a period of time in that sort of early 2013, 2014 planning for light rail, and there wasn't much demand for it at all. And so, as Scott was saying, the infrastructure is there to actually make it as easy as possible if the decision's made to put a stop in Mitchell in the future. Yeah, it's a broader question around, partly we do consult on a lot of things. We know we need to get better at that, and I think the planning refresh is a really, really great example of providing lots of different opportunities for people to engage. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
It's got
that's the
whole
other one.
systems.
Yeah.
It's actually not that far.
Yeah.
If you look at that.
Mm.
And it's, you know, it's quite
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing. There's a stop at Well Station. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Mm. The live traffic. Oh no, the walking. Oh. Mm. Oh, I'm in Peter. Yep, Peter. You happy for that, Peter? Ben can talk to that.
Yeah, we have a hard stop at 8:30.
Okay.
I think it's a good time to stop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go. If you only do it.
Do you want to come up here?
More than.
Okay. So
No.
as part of looking at which
Yeah.
there's a new app that the government's developed called Active Blog, and promoting that, and that will help inform government about where high usage areas of active travel networks are. We also identify where we've got gaps, where potential growth in the market. So keep an eye out for that in the promotional material.
Yeah, yeah. That, for those at home, that was a new app coming out next week for Ride and Walk Week. Yeah. Active Log. Is it up yet? Not quite.
It's up for
Oh, okay, great. It'll be up tomorrow. Prescott. Hi. Yep. Yes. Yes. There's a range of playground sales going in. Literally, I think as we speak. Ben will know. Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So there's certainly Heritage Park was on the list, was it? Yeah, Heritage Park. The park in Harrison, along just on Katoomba Street there behind the schools, and also some commitments around Yerribee Ponds as well, Yerribee Ponds playground. So, yeah. No, that'll be one of the things we work through over the course of the term around when those can be delivered. Yeah.
Is that essentially the proposal that was proposed for the northern side of Throsby, between Throsby and Mulligan's Flat about 3 years ago?
We'll need to have another look at that. A lot of that changed around the time that the offsets package.
But it's that neck of the woods.
Yes, well, I believe it will be, because the Throsby, as it stands at the moment, where it's being developed, it's not in that part of the Throsby estate, unless anyone else knows. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it is that one. Yeah, yeah. Hi. That's right. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
To the Kingston Street bus stop, I don't cross any traffic light, like it's all
Yep.
kind of the main common.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
To put traffic lights
Yeah.
or a walkway.
Yeah. One of yeah, certainly, and there's a few things that are happening on your side of the town centre, because the estate development plan, which I believe has been approved, is that right, Tom? Nearly? A couple of days away, for opening up more of Valley Avenue, and I think Manning Clark has opened up there, and you start to get a sense of that road network around the town centre. But the picture that Scott put up before and will be available online tomorrow does show that the changes around the town centre with light rail coming, and where there'll be some more traffic lights. And so there'll be traffic lights once light rail is operating at the top of Kate Crace Street, the intersection with Kate Crace and Hibbison, the intersection with Hinder and Hibbison, and the Valley Ave and Gozart will have traffic lights as well. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Great if that was captured
Yeah.
somehow, that we could represent it.
Yeah, no, that's the one that Scott mentioned. Yeah, it was the one up here, but it was really hard to see. Yeah. Could I just mention slightly separately in terms of light rail updates? So if you haven't, does anyone get the weekly update from Transport Canberra besides Damien? Yeah. Yeah. Do you find it useful? Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't have it already, it's on the website, and we can provide a link actually through GCC about how to, because that's a weekly update of things that are happening along the different zones along the route. But also there is a guy called David Honke who does the communications for Transport Canberra, goes on ABC Radio and 2CC each week as well to talk about some of the changes that are coming up. So it gives you a good sense of both just getting that weekly update so you can see what's happening now and what's coming, as well as if you have the chance to listen to David on the radio each week. Yeah. Sorry, could I say, and sorry, just to finish that, the other point is around F. Carpetes Street, where access across, if you're in the park and ride coming across F. Carpetes Street, we're looking at improving that access as well, because there's a reasonable amount of traffic on that street. Yeah.
On a personal level, I'm sorry it's not traffic.
No, that's right.
My bedroom back onto this front line.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I fall into that new section.
Are you in Ford or in Harrison? Are you in Ford, Harrison or Gungahlin? Okay.
And I fall into that next extension.
Oh, yeah.
The next duplication of
So you're north of Anthony Rolfe? North of Anthony Rolfe?
I back onto the
Yep.
on Wellington Street, then I
Oh, yep, yep. Oh, yeah, yep, yep, yep.
I've written to the Time Sellers Department, the government, and I've written up a second email, but they never get replied. But when that next section is going
Yeah.
to, they sent a letter around to everybody that could be affected by that. So I went into town to the Leamington building.
Yep. Dixon, yep.
And put in a note about if there could be a noise abatement
Mm.
situation from one end and the 6 houses that are affected by it.
Mhm.
But now it's affected, it's going to be twice as bad too. I did get an 18-page email back with 23 maps, but not one thing in there actually answered the question. So is there a quick way to get a yay nay, or can I build my own, or what? Because I'm getting nowhere through the process.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Actually, yeah, we've got the perfect person here, Ben, we can have a chat. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. What we were saying about Mitchell, if you don't have a car
Mhm.
and you have to get a package from the post office,
Mhm.
you walk through
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
jungle
Mm.
of gravel,
Mm.
and there's no footpaths, there's no security, apparently no mowing by the people who are policing it.
Mm.
It's very difficult to do.
Yeah, it would be.
And all of the northern stuff goes through that
Yeah.
post office village.
It's an awful location if you don't have a car. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Is there an option to have it delivered to the post office? Do they give you that option?
That's too big, it can't go on the
Yeah,
mobile.
yeah, yeah.
Back then, the only place you can go.
Mm. No, not at all anymore. Yeah. That's Australia Post is located very great for a sort of little freight hub, but very poorly for public access. I don't know if.
Well, we could,
Yeah,
the government perhaps suggest that they move, although there's an opportunity for an entrepreneur to deliver parcels.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Any more questions? I have a stack of questions on the
Oh.
application.
Okay.
Just before the new construction of Taylor,
Yep.
Moncrief and Jacker
Mhm.
as well, when are the buses going to go in? Because if they aren't there straight away, it's a case of people have to buy the second car or whatever they need to get to work.
Yeah, and that's a sort of perennial problem with new suburbs, is getting the right viability across the whole network, and an affordable network as well. I think we are looking at Taylor, Moncrief and Jacker in this current. I'm looking up. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You can take it on notice if you want.
Yeah. 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 No, it's been raised a few times here around Jacker. Yeah. Yeah.
So is that a date?
No, I can't, but I can take that on notice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, the new survey thing, which is great initiative, but...
Oh, the Your Say?
Yeah. Stuff, but we're missing a bunch, what we've got questions. So do you have any plan to come up with a part 2 of the survey, or I'm not sure whether you can capture all the information that you wanted to make good decisions based on those questions, because it just catered for a few things and it doesn't care about the rest. Because the way I see the town centre, it's not just the town centre, because it's got that relationship with the surrounding suburbs, and it needs to integrate well with other stuff as well. So unless you're not planning a, survey, planning, part 2, I don't see you would get the full coverage that we wanted in terms of planning.
I mean, I'm not a planner, and I know there's lots of some outstanding planners here who talk about these issues every day. And I think, as Gary said, if you've got suggestions about all of those things, just get them into the mix. Talk to the staff when they do their meet and greets and the meet the planners sessions. But it's certainly this is a Gungahlin town centre, so you have to have a boundary with it. But I think we're pretty conscious of a lot of the issues. But what we can't do is do a 12-month consultation process and get everybody's views and then put up a picture and say, this is what we're doing and this is what Gungahlin will look like in 10 years. Because the government has a significant role to play in a lot of different levers, but by no means all of them. And so, things change. Things change in the economy, things change with provision of transport, things change with technology. We don't... master plans, for example, come up with things like, we want to see lots more cafes. That's great, and the government can provide the settings and possibly the land, but often not the land unless it's brand new for a cafe. That relies on people setting up businesses and people visiting the cafe. And so there's a lot of, I think, I know this question comes up a lot here, but the planning framework and the government's investments, we need to do it right, and that's an evolving thing, but we're not going to get a plan which we can put up on the wall for what Gungahlin looks like for the next 10 years, because we know it'll change. But we'll certainly take all of those things, and certainly the roads, the amount of, we have a lot of data around roads. I mean, on every field that we deal with now, data's, if we could get more data, make more data open. I know David's got a real interest in having access to data, because lots of other people can do smart things with data that can help us solve some of our problems. So we'll certainly take, as Gary said, we'll take it all into account. And, if it's a common theme, we know the common themes pretty well. So, yeah.
I just want to pick up a couple of threads on that. You're right, it's very hard to predict, map out a future, but there are some things we know will happen, and therefore we need to start planning for them. So we know we have an unexpected high density of people with a new development. That's happened.
Actually, we always knew there was going to be high density.
In the town centre, perhaps not at that far edge. But
well, we always knew there were going to be a lot of people there, whether that was how high they went or when they were there, but it was always going to be a very dense area with lots of people there. Originally, it was going to be people that were there from 9 to 5.
That strengthens my argument. My point is, if we have to upgrade the roads, and some of those roads that are in red in the 2010 plan are arguably more red now, okay, it'll take at least a year to secure the funding to do the planning for the road, and another year to secure the funding to build the road. So they're 4 and 5 year conversations. So I'd like to be confident that even when the duplication of the major trunk roads that have been committed, which is awesome, late, but awesome, and it'll be painful until they're done, I'm not confident all the roads internal to Gungahlin will suddenly become free. I'm just not. Now, can you be told the truth? I was a believer around that, and that came true. I'm really not confident that fixing the edges, the edge trunk roads will fix it. And that's a 4, 5 and more year project.
No, it is.
And the second point, which relates to it, is we also know Syro are going to sell Ginninderra. Okay, that has a potentially very significant impact for everything south.
That's massive. So,
And so what are we doing about that to start planning and accommodating that
well,
now?
so does everyone know the plans for? Yeah. So, yeah. So you know the site if you go down William Slim Drive, just sort of opposite Gungahlin, next to McKellar and Everett there, that huge big block of land that goes up the Barton Highway. Everything from William Slim Drive all the way to the border is CSIRO land, and they plan to develop it into residential. So we certainly know that that came out of the blocks very quickly, and the Commonwealth decided to go ahead and do that. So we are, I'm not sure where it is. I'm actually going out there next week to have a look around the site. But yeah, that's a huge impact. Yeah, but we keep a close eye on traffic movements, understanding traffic movements. We get more data. We find out about how people are moving. We, you know that Ernest Kavanagh up here basically behind Aldi and between the Commonwealth, the Community Health Centre, that's going to be extended, so it'll improve some of the flow and open up some of the land just to the east of the town centre there as well. But you're right to be sceptical, but I think we've learnt a lot over the last few years, and the Gungahlin community as a whole has made it really clear that it hasn't been. And we certainly,
yeah, going, we really should have started planning for this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So even if we just did the planning for it, that would be prepared.
Yeah. But so, yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's this Ginninderra.
Short
Yep.
questions now if we've got them.
Yep. Short answers. Sorry.
So with the breaking news.
Yeah.
So what we're saying, we're going to close the lanes and stuff. So I asked a bunch of questions saying how we consulted the bus,
Yep.
To see the alternative routes or increase the bus frequency so people tend to take the buses and reduce the traffic. So do we have answers for those questions? Or do we even consider, stopping the trucks in the peak hours?
We are looking at having, looking at a whole range of different things at the moment around what we could do around buses and some of the other roads and providing information to people. You can do that through Google now. You notice when you listen to the radios in the morning, I don't know how they used to provide their information, but they're just looking at whatever's red on Google Maps to tell you where the traffic's heavy. We can do.
Look at the Gungahlin,
It's always red.
It's always
yeah,
red,
yeah. So maybe there are things we can do to encourage people to leave home earlier, so that the peak hour is spread a little bit, so it's tougher. We are really having a look at that. And in terms of the impact, I know that. And again, I feel like I've said it 100 times, but there'll be people that have never heard me say it, and there will be people who heard me say it once, that this year is going to be really tough on Gungahlin residents with construction of roads and light rail. And, so I thank everyone for their patience. It will be difficult. We are looking at ways. Gungahlin Drive, the addition of one more lane, the addition of signals at Wells Station Drive to get onto Gungahlin Drive has improved. The intersection at Barton Highway is, I'm really glad there's a lot of good feedback about that now. I was constantly reassured it would work well, and they were right. Yeah. But yeah, we're looking at those things, and this will move fast so that the work can be done and it can be finished quicker. And as Scott said, light rail, is likely to be operating in September next year.
Because at the moment, what we're doing is taking people from the Casey and the rest of the other side of the from the bus, and then take them to the Gungahlin Centre and then take them to the city.
Yep.
So, and we don't have like a parking right somewhere in Casey, so it's not like one going for like Jackar parking right.
Got a lot of parking in the town centre now.
But you can't, so you don't have one, you can park in the town centre, which is the whole, you're not supposed to do it there. But, so do we have plans to do that, so that would reduce the traffic? Because what I'm saying here, because we're not helping people to take the public transport. Because there's no immediate available to the bus, so they need to catch a bus to get into town.
There's not a perfect answer to that now, because we'll look at what we can do, but it will be pretty tough. But and actually solving these problems in a longer term means huge investment in public transport infrastructure like light rail, which means the government's re-election in 2012 was the commitment to build light rail. The work got underway very fast after that. All the work for it has gotten underway extremely quickly. But it was 2012 that the decision was made, and 2018, because these big infrastructure projects take a really long time to work up all the design, have all the funding, get all the approvals, and actually build it. And the 6 years it will take will be done, will be considered, I think, extremely fast. So I think we'll do what we can, and if we can come up with, if anyone's got ideas about how we can, if anyone wants to offer to carpool, or there's an entrepreneur out there that says Gungahllin's going to be terrible for the next 12 months, I'm going to run Uber. I'm an Uber driver, but I'm going to be available to do carpooling around Gungahlin, then that would be very welcome. But
all the options are bad.
well, if we can get 3 people into a car rather than 1, the options get better. Yeah.
Not a question, actually.
Yep.
It's jumping on board. I've lived in community in Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney from the suburbs.
Yep.
And trust me, you're in a country town, you've got a couple more minutes, suck it up, get on.
But the travel times would be significantly improved even as the population grows. So the next 18 months, I won't kid you, are going to be pretty tough. Different parts will start to get better sooner rather than later. But once light rail is operating, we expect to see a real change.
On that point,
Yep.
if you could take some feedback to the producers of this.
Yep.
Personally, as a user, not an infrequent user of Horse Park Drive, to describe Horse Park Drive as an alternate route, I just think that's inflammatory. So it's really would be better to remove it as an alternate route. At the moment, it might be when Horse Park Drive is all fixed out, it might be a great ride, but right now it's not.
I know it's not great. I know it's not great, but it is an alternate route.
It's not an alternative route.
Hey?
It's not an option. It's going to be better than
Yeah.
Last fall, we sneaking
Mind you, but having said that, having said that, over the course of the construction, that first section of Horse Park Drive will actually be completed, so it will actually start to improve. Yeah. I take your point, but we,
It goes from 2 to 1 until it's ended.
I know. Yeah.
Quickly.
I've seen the traffic management that you mentioned about Flemington Road. Has the Hotspot Drive duplication completed up to the Barton Highway or the Federal Highway?
No.
So what I'm proposing is, if the events are sequenced by the time that you plan to close the Flemington, the Hotspot Drive
Flemington closes in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, yeah.
It will be completed up to the Federal Highway.
Well,
Yeah.
you can't fix that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Not an option. Yeah.
Just, you talked about signalising North Valley Avenue. And it sounded like you haven't mentioned this before, but Gosar and Valley Avenue, Warwick and Valley Avenue are quite very challenging in the morning.
Yeah.
So they can be brought forward, I think.
Yeah. I think the lower one at Warwick, but the back. Again, part of it is the impact of people doing things that they won't do once these really big investments are made. And so I take your point, but I think I take everyone's point on the roadworks. And just to reassure you that I live here too, and it's tough, but we'll have a really good look at the town centre. It worked really well when it closed for the marketplace redevelopment. It changed quite a bit about how it was. Yeah. Could I just say one thing on Gary's presentation is there's been a lot of discussion here about the lower end of Hibberson Street too. So even though that work, we did quite a lot of work and consulting on what people wanted to see on the lower end of Hibberson Street, really where the marketplace is, where that work is going to feed into the work that's being done at the moment, and so we'll let that happen and pull it all together as one once people have a picture of the town centre as a whole. So Hibberson Street, the lower part, is certainly still very much on our radar.
I think we could go on all night. I'd like to thank you all for coming along
Thank you.
tonight. Thank you for coming along and staying so late.
Thank you.
No one is allowed to leave the room unless they take a sandwich.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, the Commonwealth, the ACT government grant would be wasted. So please enjoy the sandwiches.
Hi,
See you all next
going.
month. Appreciate your time.
I'm gonna. Have you switched off there, Dave? Oh, okay. Here we go.